Tengo 23 años y 50.000 pesetas. Y estoy solo en el mundo. Intentaré ser un buen marido para ti y un buen padre para tus hijos.
Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is a film that came out in 1990 that's written and directed by Pedro Almodovar. So Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is actually a $20 Criterion patron pick from Mitchy. Everybody knows that Mitchy is no other than my friend from a land down under, and I highly appreciate all the support that he's given my channel so far. So when it comes to my feelings for Pedro Almodovar as a filmmaker, so far, I can say that I think he's a pretty great filmmaker. I mean, I love The Skin I Live In, and I actually also love Bad Education. The only one that I really wasn't too fond of was his most recent film, Parallel Mothers, and I'm actually in the minority on that because everybody else that I've talked to really dug that film. So Parallel Mothers was actually the only reason why I went into this film with very slight skepticism. I went into it with more confidence and skepticism, but that slightest bit of skepticism was definitely there. But I was wrong to be skeptical because I really dug this film quite a bit. I don't love it as much as Bad Education or The Skin I Live In, but I still think that this is a pretty damn solid film. Because a lot like The Skin I Live In and Bad Education, I thought this film had a compelling story and interesting characters, on top of the fact that I found the aesthetic and the direction quite eye-popping. Because even though this film was being produced at the end of the 80s era, you really can't tell that by the way that this film looks. To me, this film looks pretty damn timeless. A lot of it has to do with just the excellent direction and framing that we get with the cinematography throughout the film. But also on top of that, the color palette to me is very vibrant and very colorful. Because like the Criterion cover, I was curious to know. I mean, first of all, I really like the Criterion cover a lot. Honestly, this is one of my favorite Criterion covers out there. And it's mostly just because of, obviously, the graphic design, but also the colors that were chosen for it. And when you open it up, you know, you get this, again, more of that awesome color palette that you get from the Criterion cover. And I was really curious to find out whether or not these colors actually translate on the screen. And they actually do. A lot of the colors that are chosen on this Criterion cover and in the discs definitely represent the color palette that is in the film. Whether it be the color of the walls, or the color of characters' clothing, or the color of objects that we see throughout the film, it really sticks to a certain color palette. And as I said, it really makes the film stick out and makes it really gorgeous and eye-popping to look at. And it kind of radiates a type of fun and playful mood, which I think is, again, a bit ironic for the context in this film, because this film does deal with a pretty controversial and twisted topic. And when it comes to Almodovar's films that I've seen so far, I've noticed something that is reoccurring. And that thing is that Almodovar really likes to do his damnedest to humanize fucked up characters. And he most definitely does that in this film in regards to the character played by Antonio Banderas. And I think that's an interesting thing for a filmmaker to do. And it's mostly because I find it really fascinating. I find it fascinating when artists kind of push the boundaries and blur the lines between things that we should find obviously moral and immoral. And without spoiling it, it's through the actions of Antonio Banderas' character that it establishes and develops a dynamic with his co-star Victoria Abril. And it's through their dynamic and their relationship that I feel like Almodovar is exploring so many different moral ambiguities and just blurring the lines all over the place. He's blurring the line between love and obsession. He's blurring the line between attraction and love. He's blurring the line between conviction and obsession. I mean, a lot of feelings and a lot of preconceived notions are kind of getting mixed up here. And it's through some lines of dialogue and some of its presentation that I feel like the film is a bit aware of itself, which did make it easier to kind of get on board with what it was doing. And even though a bit of it is a bit difficult to buy in some respects, I can't help but kind of appreciate what it's going for thematically. But one of the things that kind of bugged me after watching this film was just me thinking about what the hell Almodovar was even trying to say with everything. Because to me, there doesn't really seem to be a message or messages that the audience can take away from the film. But I mean, the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, maybe he didn't really want to send a message. Maybe his goal was just to open up a can of worms and start a discussion and start debates among its viewers. But another element of this film that I did quite enjoy was the fact that it's actually quite silly and humorous. And even though there's some just flat out just goofy moments in this movie. There's also a big emphasis on dark comedy that I think works really well, because it's that quirk of dark comedy that I feel like also makes it feel self-aware of itself and makes it more enjoyable and entertaining despite, its dark and twisted nature. In a way, I feel like it's kind of a tool to somewhat trick the audience into thinking that what they're watching really isn't that fucked up, but in reality, it really is. But I do want to take a second to appreciate the performances in this film. I've already talked a little bit about Antonio Banderas. I think that he gives a great performance in this film and embodying, again, this obviously immoral and obsessed character that has a very twisted way at attempting to make somebody fall for him. But also, Victoria Abril in this film, I thought she also gives a pretty damn great performance. And for some reason, just in terms of looks, she reminded me a lot of a Spanish version of Juliette Binoche. And I know that's kind of irrelevant to say, but I couldn't shake that thought throughout the entire runtime, and I just thought I'd share it with you. But another thing about this film is that it's NC-17, and with that knowledge going into it, I was expecting more from it when it comes to its sexuality and its graphic nature. But honestly, it was actually kind of dialed back. I mean, we get one kind of intense sex scene in particular in this film, but I mean, it's nothing worse than I've seen in films like The Wolf of Wall Street or other films that have more intense sex scenes in it that are rated R. But I think perhaps it got the NC-17 label because of the fact that it's attempting to make the audience think about love and sexuality in a very warped and twisted way. But the sensuality and the sexuality is definitely there in this film. So if you're going into it expecting that, I do think that it delivers. But I mean, it's not nearly as over the top as a lot of other NC-17 films that I have seen. But another element of this film that I have to talk about, and it'll probably be the last element of this film that I'll talk about, is the musical score. Because believe it or not, the musical score is composed by Ennio Morricone, who is obviously the most legendary musical composer that we've ever heard. When it comes to the score on a standalone level, like separating the film completely from the score, I think the score sounds great. But when it comes to how it meshes with the film, I feel like a lot of it comes off just over the top and unnecessary. And it's one of the only things about the film that I feel like kind of dates it. And it's more present in the first act more than anything. Like, it's a lot more noticeable. But it's definitely there and was one of the elements of the film that was kind of holding me back from really getting immersed into my experience. But overall, I obviously really dug this film. I'm really glad that I watched it. I'm glad that I own it. And obviously, I'm very appreciative and grateful that Mitchy requested it. So I'm going to give Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down a very strong 7 out of 10. So what do y'all think the next Pedro Almodovar film I should watch? I mean, I've heard a lot of great things about All About My Mother, so perhaps that'll be my next one, but please let me know in the comment section what you think the next Almodovar film I should see, and also just what you think about Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down in general. Please don't forget to let that be known in the comment section. But other than that, if you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.